So a piece of delicate tulle weighing like less than an ounce actually has the architectural power to completely alter the geometry of the human body.
Oh, absolutely. It's wild to think about.
Right. I mean, we usually think of structural engineering in terms of, rigid, heavy materials like steel beams or concrete foundations, load-bearing walls.
Yeah, the really heavy stuff.
Exactly. But we rarely consider that some of the most deliberate, high-stakes structural geometry happening today involves fabrics so light you can literally breathe right through them.
It completely reframes how we think about visual architecture. I mean, instead of building physical mass, we are manipulating optical focal points.
Wow, yeah.
We're using sheer fluid material to tell the human eye exactly where to look, where to stop, and how to process a silhouette.
And that is exactly what we are decoding today.
Yeah.
So whether you are, prepping for a wedding yourself or maybe helping a friend navigate the absolute chaos of bridal planning.
Which is always a lot.
Oh, it's so much. Or maybe you're just insanely curious about the hidden mechanics of fashion and like the psychology of small business success. There are massive aha moments waiting for you here.
Definitely. There's so much more to it than just a piece of fabric.
Right. So our lens for this deep dive is the playbook of a uniquely successful family-owned shop in Warrington, Pennsylvania. They're called Darianna Bridal and Tuxedo.
A fantastic source.
Truly. We are going to break down the physics of veil lengths, the optical illusions of bridal styling, and the specific operational mechanics of how a local family business built a nationally recognized authority. Okay, let's unpack this.
To really grasp the visual architecture at play here, we have to start with the shorter veil lengths.
Make sense? Start small.
Right. And the foundational rule here is that the shorter the veil, the more precise its geometric relationship is with the dress itself.
Interesting.
Yeah, there are 4 distinct short lengths, and each one acts as a highly specific, mechanical tool.
Okay, let's start with the shortest tool in the kit, which is the shoulder length. It sits at about 20 inches, and I guess it's increasingly being called the mini veil.
Yeah, the mini veil. So at 20 inches, the fabric cascades just past the neck and stops right at the shoulders.
Okay.
The mechanical function of this length is all about revealing rather than concealing.
Because it stops so high up.
Exactly. By stopping so high on the body, it leaves the entire back exposed. So if a bride has like an intricate keyhole back on her dress, or a deeply plunging cowl back,
Or maybe like a significant piece of statement jewelry.
yes, the mini veil creates a frame for those elements without covering them in a heavy layer of tulle.
Oh, that makes total sense.
And if you pull that netting over the face, you get that classic birdcage style.
Right, which offers that distinctly vintage, almost cinematic, mid-century glamour.
Exactly. It's a very specific vibe.
Okay, so dropping down a bit, we hit the elbow length. And the source notes, this is where the optical illusions really start to kick in.
They really do.
But wait, I have a question about this. If an elbow-length veil is pouring around the elbows and the midsection, wouldn't adding volume to the shoulders and arms just make a person look incredibly top-heavy?
That is a very intuitive concern.
Right. How does that actually help the overall silhouette?
Well, it actually does the exact opposite, and it's all because of horizontal break lines.
Break lines.
Yeah. The human eye naturally seeks out lines. When a veil ends abruptly at the elbow, it creates a subtle horizontal line right across the body's midsection.
Oh, I see.
And that line serves as a visual magnet, drawing the viewer's eye straight to the waistline.
Which explains why this is the absolute perfect pairing for an empire waist dress.
Exactly.
Because for anyone unfamiliar, an empire waist is that like classic Bridgerton silhouette where the waistline is raised entirely, it cinches horizontally right underneath the bust rather than at the natural waist.
Right, and the elbow veil basically points an invisible arrow right at that specific design feature.
That's brilliant.
It also solves a major problem for massive ball gowns. A traditional ball gown has a skirt that commands the room.
Oh, for sure.
If you wear a floor-length veil over a massive skirt, you have 2 massive visual elements just fighting for dominance.
They're competing.
Exactly. The elbow veil stops short, allowing the skirt and the train to be the undisputed focal point of the lower half of the body.
Wow. Okay, then we reach the fingertip veil. This seems to be like the universal crowd pleaser.
Oh, it's incredibly popular.
But there is a very specific mathematical reason for its popularity, right? Particularly when it's paired with a trumpet or a mermaid-style dress.
Yes, the proportions are perfect.
Because A trumpet or mermaid dress is tailored incredibly tight through the torso, the hips, and the thighs, and then it kind of violently flares out into a wider skirt somewhere around the knee.
Right. And the fingertip veil is a masterclass in continuous visual flow.
How so?
Think about where a person's fingertips fall when their arms are just resting at their sides.
Usually right around the mid to lower thigh.
Right. That happens to be the exact point where a mermaid dress begins its outward extension.
Oh, wow.
So by having the veil end precisely where the skirt flares out, you aren't chopping the body into blocks. You are bridging the sleek, tailored upper half of the dress with the dramatic, voluminous lower half,
It provides a sense of romance and movement up top.
without obscuring the intense tailoring of the dress down below. Exactly.
That is fascinating. Okay, finishing out the shorter category is the waltz length. This one falls right around the ankle, so it is technically a floor-length look, but it never actually touches the ground.
And that solves a major logistical nightmare.
For outdoor ceremonies, right?
Mostly, yes. When a veil touches the ground outside, it instantly becomes a dragnet for twigs, dirt, and
Or
friction.
gross. Yeah, you don't want that.
No, you really don't. By terminating at the ankle, it catches the ambient wind and creates beautiful, billowing movement without the drag coefficient of the earth.
So you get the drama of a long veil without having to physically manage it while walking through, like, a garden or over cobblestones.
Exactly. It's the best of both worlds.
You know, listening to how these four lengths operate, the best analogy I can think of is cropping a photograph.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, a veil isn't just an accessory. It is an architectural framing device that tells the viewer's eye exactly where the focal point of the human body is.
That's spot on.
Like, a 20-inch mini veil crops the frame at the shoulders to highlight the exposed back. The elbow length crops the frame at the midsection to highlight an empire waist. And then the fingertip veil crops the upper body just before the skirt explodes outward.
That is the perfect way to conceptualize it. The short veils are framing devices.
Right.
But when we move into the longer veils, the entire mechanical paradigm shifts.
The long veils, this is where things get serious.
Very serious. We move from framing the existing body to extending the body's physical footprint in a room.
And with that extended footprint comes a host of logistical challenges and pure, unadulterated drama.
Oh, the drama's real.
So let's talk about the chapel-length veil, which clocks in at about 90 inches. And there is a phenomenal mechanical hack associated with this one that completely changes the trajectory of a reception.
We really need to talk about bustling first to understand it.
Please explain the nightmare that is bustling.
Gladly. So, in bridal fashion, if you have a dress with a long, heavy train, you obviously can't dance or navigate a crowded reception room with a puddle of fabric dragging 3 feet behind you.
Right, people would just be stepping on it all night.
Exactly. So, a seamstress will sew in a complicated series of hidden hooks, loops, and buttons. And after the ceremony, the bridesmaids have to spend 20 minutes folding and pinning the train up onto the back of the dress.
And that process is called bustling.
Yes, it is necessary, but it can be really cumbersome, and the buttons frequently break.
Which brings us to the genius of the 90-inch chapel veil.
Right.
If a bride chooses a sleek dress with little to no built-in train, the chapel veil itself can act as the train during the ceremony.
It's such a brilliant workaround.
It really is. It gives you the sweeping, dramatic aesthetic for the walk down the aisle. But when it's time to party, you don't have to fiddle with a complicated dress bustle. You simply take the veil out of your hair and you are instantly ready to dance.
It is the ultimate low-friction solution, especially for, like, a beach or destination wedding where dragging heavy dress fabric through sand is just a total nightmare.
Exactly. It is the perfect marriage of form and function. But when we escalate to the cathedral length, which is approximately 120 inches, we enter the realm of pure aesthetic power.
Oh, absolutely. This is the timeless, awe-inspiring look you associate with grand church weddings.
And it turns out, according to the shop, this is the most requested length of all. But why? 120 inches, 10 feet of fabric. Why is that the sweet spot?
One word. Photography.
Ah.
A 10-foot veil is a photographer's ultimate tool. It is long enough to pull out entirely to the side to create leading lines in a photograph.
Oh, I've seen those shots.
Right. It is long enough to literally wrap around the couple, creating a sheer halo-like cocoon for intimate portraits. It interacts with the wind to create a dynamic sculptural element in the frame.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Beyond the cathedral is the final boss of bridal architecture, The royal length veil.
Royal length.
We are talking 144 to 180 inches. That is up to 15 feet of fabric.
It's massive.
I have to call a timeout on the physics here. How does a human neck support that? We are talking about dragging 15 feet of material across a carpeted church aisle.
It's heavy.
The friction alone would act like a parachute. How is that physically anchored to the head without ripping out the bride's hair?
That is the ultimate trade-off of the royal length. You are sacrificing physical mobility for a purely majestic statement.
So how do they anchor it?
To your point about the friction, it requires serious mechanical support. A tiny plastic comb just won't cut it.
I'd imagine not.
It usually requires a heavy-duty metal comb, deeply anchored into a secure, heavily pinned updo, often reinforced with structural hair products and bobby pins, forming a literal locking mechanism against the scalp.
That's insane. It's like managing a physical tether. You are literally towing a sail behind you.
You really are.
Yeah.
And the environmental logistics are just as strict.
Like the venue size?
Yes. You simply cannot deploy a 15-foot royal veil in a cramped room or a narrow hallway. It requires a venue with an aisle long enough and wide enough to accommodate the sheer mass of the fabric.
Right.
Furthermore, visually, it requires a dress with an equally massive train. If you wear a 15-foot veil with a slim, straight dress, the veil visually swallows the wearer.
Oh, because the proportions are off.
Exactly. The dress has to possess enough structural volume to balance out the immense weight of the veil.
So the veil lengths dictate the overall silhouette and the physical footprint. But managing the back of the dress is only half the battle.
Only half, yeah.
The true customization, the visual texture, and the deep historical weight of this garment happen in the layers and the front-facing styling roles. So let's talk about the blusher.
Yes, the blusher. That is that single shorter layer, usually about 30 inches, that is worn draped over the face as the wearer walks down the aisle.
And historically, the blusher wasn't about modesty or dramatic reveal, was it?
Not at all. In ancient times, it actually functioned as a supernatural shield.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It was genuinely believed that a thick veil over the face would confuse or ward off evil spirits attempting to curse the wearer on a highly vulnerable day.
Wow. From literal demon repellent to modern romance.
The evolution is completely fascinating. Today, obviously, the blusher is heavily tied to the symbolism of purity, modesty, and the anticipation of the reveal.
Right. It usually culminates in the father or whoever is walking the bride down the aisle, lifting the blusher over the head just before giving her away.
And once it is flipped back, it doesn't just disappear.
It adds volume, right?
Exactly. It creates a secondary tier of fabric down the back. In fact, when you deliberately stack multiple piers of varying lengths down the back, the industry calls it a waterfall veil.
Oh, I love that term.
Yeah, it adds incredible cascading volume.
But throwing layers of tulle onto a dress requires strict stylistic discipline. And the golden rule from the experts at Darianna Bridal is a masterclass in visual balance, they say. Opposites attract.
It's the most important rule. Because if you do not follow the rule of opposites, you end up with optical chaos.
Let's look at the two extremes. Suppose you have a sleek, minimalist gown made of crepe or satin.
Okay, so crepe and satin are smooth, almost liquid-like fabrics with zero texture or heavy detailing. They are quiet canvases.
So because the dress is quiet, the veil gets to be loud.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That is when you introduce an ornate veil. Heavy floral lace appliques, thick embroidery, Swarovski crystal beading along the edges. The veil provides all the visual texture.
But if we reverse the scenario, say you were wearing a dress completely covered in intricate three-dimensional layered lace and heavy beading.
Then the veil must be quiet.
Makes sense.
You pair that loud dress with a completely plain, raw-edge, soft tulle veil. If you pair a heavily textured lace dress with a heavily textured lace veil, they visually fight for dominance.
The human eye doesn't know where to land.
Exactly. It feels cluttered. The eye requires a place to rest. And beyond texture, color matching is just as paramount.
Oh, because white isn't just white.
Right. A veil cannot just be white. If a dress has warm ivory undertones and the veil is a stark, icy optic white, the clash is incredibly jarring.
The tulle and the appliques must be custom matched to the exact dye lot of the gown.
They have to be.
So navigating the geometry, the friction, the layers, and the dye lots, I mean, it is an overwhelmingly complex, high-stakes, emotional purchase.
It really is.
Which brings us to the most brilliant operational mechanism in our source material. How do you actually guide a panicked consumer through all of this?
It's not easy.
No. But Darianna Bridal utilizes a 15-question quiz. It maps out venue, budget, and silhouette. But the genius part is how they map abstract fashion concepts to incredibly clear visual anchors.
Oh, the celebrity quiz.
Yes. They ask, which celebrity wedding style is your vibe? Kate Middleton, Meghan Markle, Ariana Grande, or Hailey Baldwin?
It is an incredibly effective psychological tool.
I can see why.
Yeah, because most people do not possess the vocabulary to describe intricate lace patterns or structural tulle. But if you say Kate Middleton, you immediately establish a baseline of timeless grand cathedral lace with royal formality.
Right. And if you say Hailey Baldwin,
You establish a sleek, modern, almost street-style influenced luxury. It translates overwhelming industry jargon into immediate, recognizable cultural touchstones.
and for those who take that quiz and realize they don't align with any of it, like the none of the above crowd who want absolutely nothing to do with dragging a net behind them, there is a whole world of architectural toppers that don't involve veils at all.
Yes, so many alternatives.
Boho flower crowns for outdoor organic settings, tiaras anchored with pearls for structural height, intricate rhinestone hair vines that are physically woven into a braided updo.
It's not about forcing everyone into 15 feet of tulle.
Right, it's about finding the correct visual capstone for the specific architecture of the dress.
Which naturally leads us to look at the architects themselves.
Who figured out how to systematize this deeply emotional, highly complex process.
Exactly. It's one thing to understand the physics of fabric, but it's entirely another to build a nationally recognized institution around it.
So let's look at the mechanics of Darianna Bridal Tuxedo. This isn't a massive corporate conglomerate operating out of a skyscraper.
No, not at all.
It was founded in January 2013 by Franco and Wendy Salerno, and the name is actually a portmanteau of their two daughters, Daria and Deanna.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah. They are a local, family-run shop in Warrenton, Pennsylvania, yet the metrics of their success are basically staggering.
They operate on a completely different level than a standard local retailer. I mean, in 2024, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce named them a top 100 small business in America.
Wow.
By the summer of 2025, they were featured on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. They've been highlighted by Apple, The Wall Street Journal, and ABC National News.
And perhaps the most difficult metric to achieve in the brutal, high-stress world of wedding retail, they're sitting on nearly 1,000 Google reviews with an average rating of 4.9 stars.
That's practically unheard of.
Anyone who has ever worked in customer service knows that maintaining a 4.9 across 1,000 highly stressed brides and grooms is basically a statistical anomaly. So what does this all mean? How did they do it?
The secret to their explosive success is authority through demystification.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, the wedding industry is notoriously opaque. It relies heavily on consumer anxiety and confusing pricing to drive sales. What Darianna Bridal did was look at a deeply emotional, highly chaotic process. The geometry of dresses, the physics of veils, the optical illusions of styling, and they systematically demystified it.
Like with the quiz.
Yeah, exactly. They created quizzes. They established clear, understandable rules like opposites attract. They lowered the anxiety of the consumer.
Right.
When you lower consumer anxiety during one of the most stressful purchases of their life, you don't just get a customer. You create a vocal evangelist for your brand.
And they took that authority and rooted it deeply into the actual soil of their community. They aren't just sitting behind a counter. Wendy Salerno won Entrepreneur of the Year and was named a Woman of Influence.
They're incredibly active.
Very. The family serves on the boards of multiple regional chambers of commerce. Their daughter Daria is a former wish granter for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The business partners with St. Jude's Children's Hospital, Wish Upon a Wedding, and they constantly fund local high school theater programs and community bands.
And that is the final piece of the puzzle. They combined high-level technical demystification with genuine boots-on-the-ground community integration.
Yeah.
You are receiving expert-level guidance on the visual architecture of a cathedral veil, but you are receiving it from a family that actively funds the local school's arts programs.
Yeah.
It completely humanizes the transaction.
It is a phenomenal blueprint for how modern commerce can and should operate.
Definitely.
As we pull all these threads together, it becomes incredibly clear to you that choosing a veil or choosing not to wear one is never just a blind adherence to an outdated tradition.
No, not at all.
It is a highly deliberate exercise in visual architecture. It is managing the literal physics of fabric respecting ancient historical symbolism, and utilizing optical illusions to tell the world exactly who you are in that specific moment.
Well said.
And it is a high-stakes journey that is absolutely best navigated with the help of experts who prioritize lowering your anxiety over maximizing their transaction.
I think that is the core takeaway. But as we leave you today, I want to offer a final thought to ponder that shifts our perspective one last time.
Okay, what is it?
Think about the sheer physical reality of that 180-inch royal veil we discussed earlier.
Oh boy, the 15 feet of fabric.
Exactly. 15 feet of carefully engineered, mathematically balanced fabric designed to dominate a massive room.
Mm.
After the meticulous photography is done, after the ceremony concludes and the reception ends, what happens to it? How does a garment so physically massive and so heavily loaded with emotional gravity transition from being a one-day public structural spectacle into a quietly preserved piece of family history sitting in a box in an attic? The life cycle of that fabric is a journey all its own.
That is such a fascinating transition to think about, from a 15-foot architectural sale right down to a folded heirloom in the dark.
It really puts it into perspective.
It does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope you discovered some incredible aha moments hidden in the tool, and we invite you to keep learning, keep questioning the mechanics of the world around you, and keep exploring.